Scott Hall, Skagit Valley College. What we're going to learn about today is the latest from Genisys, the Evo. And what this is a diagnostic equipment that's going to tell us everything that we need to know about our computerized systems. Some of you have undoubtedly used a code reader in the past. Well, this is a lot more than a code reader. Not only can we read codes, but we can diagnose those codes, we can get live data, we can freeze frame, we can actually function different items on the car. So this is the latest piece of equipment that will tell us everything we need to know, and it's the type of equipment we need to diagnose the modern car. So when we get the Genisys to the vehicle you're going to work on, the first thing is to turn it on. This is obviously the button down here at the bottom for turning or powering up. It takes a couple of seconds for it to power up. Then you'll see the screen light up. And after it goes through an intro, it will come up with a screen that talks about some choices. Scan diagnostics, repair information, setup, playback, and even some on the tire pressure monitoring system. So we're going to be concentrating on scan diagnostics. But before we do that, there's a couple of housekeeping items that I want to let you know about. Number one, anytime we make a choice on this, obviously we're going to press enter to confirm that choice. Enter is also, anytime you want to go forward, you push enter. Anytime you go backwards, you push exit. So forward maneuvering is enter, backwards to the previous screen is exit. Before we get into scan diagnostics, the first thing we need to do is hook this up to the vehicle. This is a 16-pin diagnostic link connector, and this is standard on all OBD2 cars, 1996 and after. This has to be connected up to the automobile. Now, the diagnostic link connector, or as we now call it, the DLC, that's the acronym, is always on the driver's side, and it's usually to the left of the steering column. So we should be able to look around down here, see the female portion of this connector, and connect it up. Okay, I'm now connected. Okay, so we're getting a better look at the screen here, and we're going to do some navigating. So the first is, let me exit out of where I am. Okay, we can see we're on scan diagnostics. That's typically where we're going to start out and go. So let's go enter. And then you can see, again, we can pick any vehicle, Asian, European, domestic, or our generic, our global. In this case, let's go domestic. We've got a Chrysler here, so let's go Chrysler, enter. So it boots up a little bit. Now it's going to ask us for year, make, model, engine size, some things like that. But notice in this red bar on top, it actually asks you the VIN. So even though you may know this is a 2010 car, don't just push that first choice. We could go manipulate it around and get any of these choices, but we want to actually look at the VIN number, the VIN number, the vehicle identification number, and see what that 10th VIN is. If it's an A, B, or C, then we can push that number and push enter. Okay, in this case it was a C. There's the 10th VIN again. Now it's asking, is this a Chrysler, is this a Dodge, or is this a Ram? In this case, it's a Dodge, and we know that. Car or truck. This is a car. And this is a Dodge Charger. So we're going to go over and down, enter. Now it's asking for the 5th VIN in the red bar again. So we've got to go look at the 5th VIN and see what that is. In this case, we can see it's an RT, so we're going to enter that. Now it's asking, okay, where do you want to go? You're in, we've got this car loaded, this 2001 to 12 Dodge car Charger, and it tells what it is up on top, an RT. Now, do we want to look at engine? Do we want to look at transmission? Do we want to look at anti-lock brakes, airbags? Any of these are selected, and we can scroll up and down too with our scroll bar. So this is how you scroll, just a down key, and those things are scrolling. Look at all the different computers in this car. There's a lot of them in there. So we're going to go back to the top though, and we're going to start with engine, okay? It's going to tell us what cable to use, and really all the cars we're dealing with OBD2 have this top cord, which is the smart cord, and that's got the 16-pin OBD2 connector on it. So that one's really going to be utilized unless you have a very old vehicle. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go forward. Okay, so here we are on the car, and we can do several different choices. If I just wanted to check trouble codes, diagnostic trouble codes, I've got a dash light on, a check engine light. You can see I can scroll down to diagnostic trouble codes and push enter. Read codes and clear codes. So we need to remember that when we're done reading the codes and we're done, we can come back to this screen to get rid of those codes and to clear them. So right now, let's go ahead and read those codes. You can see in the code area there is 4 different choices here. Number 1, there's stored active codes. These are codes that are malfunctioning right now, and we've got a code stored on them. There's also this thing called pending codes. These are codes that are not yet as a failure code. They have met what we call the criteria to fail, but it has to go through a certain number of drives. The car has to drive a certain amount of times before it'll actually turn on the light. So it's kind of a way to verify, yes, this really is a problem. It's driven more than once, and I'm going to turn on the light. So pending codes are codes that the component has failed, but the light is not yet on. It's a pending code. And then you can see active codes. Those are the ones that are going on right now. And then a freeze frame is actually data that is stored at the moment that malfunction happens, and we can look at that. So let's start here with stored codes. I'm going to enter. And we can see there are no malfunction codes here, no stored codes. Okay, there's an okay thing over there, and it takes me back. Well, let's look at pending codes, see if there's any pending codes. No pending codes either. Okay, well, we're doing good, aren't we? Active codes. And we see on the active codes, we've got 5 different codes. PO 351, 352, 353, 4, and 500. And you can see they're all having to do with the coils. Coil 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so this probably is something that's affecting all the coils. It's not just 4 coil failures, but that's the first step in diagnosing what's going on, is being able to see these codes and go to the codes. Now if I push on that code, lots of times I can get additional information. I went over here to Pathfinder. Let's see if it comes up with some additional information for us. Okay, and you see when I went to Pathfinder, Pathfinder's like a diagnostic help. How to help figure out this problem. We've got these codes, well, where do I go? And it tells you several things here. It tells you where the component is. It tells you information about the sensor itself. It gives you some symptoms and some tune-up specs, because coils are related to an engine tune-up. And it gives you some TSBs, and we know those from earlier that those are technical service bulletins. So this is all information that we can use when we got a code. You don't have that kind of information when you just got a code reader. And we can go to any of these and find out additional information. So for instance, let's go down here and go to sensor information. Let's see what it pulls up there. Well, it doesn't look like it's coming up with much there. So, come on. Thank you. Okay, let's look at one of these categories. Let's go to symptoms. See if we find something there. Okay, it says verify the customer complaint. We know that's good policy. And again, it's just leading you to a whole nother menu here. Cranking, what's the fuel like, what's the spark like. All of these different things are a way to lead you further in to diagnose where you need to go. It's probably more than we need to know today, but know that when you get a code, there is then a pathway that you could follow that prints out information or gives you on screen information to help you actually then figure out why you have that code. And that's all built into this machine. So right now, what I want you to be able to do is at least get codes and understand that there is a place to go to find additional information. So let's back out of this. And if we go all the way back here, we can see we're back on that menu where we read codes. And if I was done, I had the vehicle fixed, and now I wanted to clear those malfunction codes, I could just go down here to clear the codes, press enter, press enter again, and it's asking, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. It cleared the codes. Okay, so now we know how to get into codes and we know how to clear codes. And you understand that there's additional information for helping you diagnose those codes. Okay, let's go back to the main menu. One other thing to do with codes that I want you to understand. Remember when we went to diagnostic trouble codes, when I read codes, they were actually in just one area. We checked engines. That's where we were, in engines. But sometimes when you're working on a car, you may have a related system that has a code in it, and if you just check engine codes, you may not know that. This very top line, excuse me, pushed the wrong button. All systems diagnostic trouble code scan. If I press that, it's going to scan any malfunction code with any system. So if it has an airbag code, it's going to come up. If it has a transmission code, it's going to come up. Sometimes we think that the problem's in the engine, and it might be a transmission problem or a brake problem. So by doing an all system scan, not a bad idea. Covers all your bases. You make sure what's in there. Okay, when you do an all system scan, number one, be prepared that this is not a quick load. It's going to actually then go through every module on the car, scan it and process it and look for codes. So it might take 5 minutes for you to get a report. And you can look at the top leader line there, and you'll see it scanning the different modules as it works through the engine, the transmission, the brakes, the airbags, etc. And when it's all done, you will have a total list of malfunctions in any part of the car. And we can see it starts with engines here, but if I scroll down, you can see that here's one for a mass airflow circuit also. There's more mass airflow, map sensor. Here's a transmission code, incorrect gear ratio. Here's a body code. Okay, so it's just a way of checking any malfunction code anywhere in the car. So that's all systems scan. Now let's go ahead and exit out of this. And as we leave codes, what I want you to remember on that, just a summation on codes then, is you've got a couple of different ways to check codes. Number one, you can go to diagnostic trouble codes once you've entered the vehicle information and get the codes for a certain system. The engine module, the transmission module, whatever one you pick. Or you can go up to all systems and scan everything and get codes for all areas. Okay, those are the two different ways to get codes. And remember, once you get a code, you can erase that code, and you can also get further information for helping you diagnose that code. That's all stored under the trouble code areas. Okay, so let's move on to another area, and that's data stream. Live data coming off the computer. Okay, when we scroll down and hit data stream, as we see here, we can enter. Let's go to misfire data, since that's the kind of malfunction we had there with the coils, right? Now you can see what we've got listed here is all kinds of data. Throttle position, camshaft position sensor, there's our misfires. I can scroll down. I can see injector input. There's more injector information. Engine oil pressure, engine load, idle air temperature. These are all sensor inputs. These are all the readings, and we're going to get to know those readings as we go. But here's a couple of items I want you to know about. Number one, let's say we wanted to look at 3 or 4 different data lines, and we wanted to just watch those. We didn't want to be scrolling up and down to see one and then see the other. So number one, if you go over here to the More button, push More, and then you can see we're up here at Print and Zoom, but right now let's go down to Sort. Push Sort. The easiest way to sort those is by alphabet. So if I go like this, now all the scan data is sorted alphabetically, starting with A, B, C. So it's really easy to find something because you know what it starts with. So that's the initial way to sort. But let's say I want to just keep a couple of things. Let's say I want that accelerator position right there. So I'm going to push that. And I'm going to lock it. When I did that, see a little padlock, or a little green padlock came up. Now there is also something way down here that I want to look at. I want to look at the coil. So let's say I go to ignition coil 1, and I want to look at that. So I'm going to lock that. I just pushed enter, wait a couple seconds, and now it locked that. And now let's say there was one more thing down here. I wanted to look at the map sensor also. So I'm going to push enter one more time, wait a couple seconds, and a little green padlock comes there. Now I go back over to the More button, and I go back down to Sort, and I push enter, and you can see there's one that I can sort by locked. So now guess, those 3 that I locked, they're all at the top of the screen, and I can watch those all at one time because I've sorted them by locking them. If I wanted to unlock them, guess what? Go down to it, push the enter button again. There went the little green padlock, right? Push the enter button. It's unlocked. Push the button again, it's unlocked also. Okay, one other thing I want to show you to do, and that is, let's say we're going to go down here to this map sensor, and I want to graph that. Okay, this box here is controlled by this button. So if I push that, now all of a sudden I've got a graph of the map sensor. There's an analog meter of the map sensor, and now it's back to digital. So let's say I've got it on graph, but that's not big enough to see. So I'm going to come over here to the More. Well, look what the second item is there. zoom. Press zoom. Now I've got a nice big graph that I can watch that map sensor as it works. And obviously if I want to get out of that, I can just go backwards and go zoom that back out. And then likewise go back to the analog, or excuse me, the digital. Okay, so anytime we want to go backwards, we're just going to go exit, forwards, enter. Okay, so let's just recap everything we've learned today. We've learned about how to power it up. We've learned that you've got to find the DLC, or the diagnostic link connector, and that is the 16-pin terminal. It's going to be under the dash on the left-hand side. It needs to be plugged in, and the ignition key needs to be turned to on. Not the car running, but the ignition key to on. We learned about navigating: forward, enter key; reverse, exit key. Entering the VIN, or entering the information to pick your car by the VIN code, not by just guessing. Okay, enter the VIN. And then getting codes. You can either get codes in the generic area, or you can get codes in the all scan. The all system scan, remember, was all the systems, and it'll take a while, but it'll give you every code for every system. Or if you just wanted to get generic codes, or excuse me, codes for a certain area, you could go there. Don't forget also that when you go there, there's also the way to clear codes. And what happens when you get codes? What happens when you get codes? Remember that we can push on that code and get diagnostic help. It'll show us a pathway of what is that sensor, what's the problems with it, how can we fix it. Okay, that's codes. And then with data stream, remember we're going to pick data for a certain area, and then we can organize that either by locking it or by alphabetized. And then lastly, we can put that data on a graph and view it graphically. When we're all done, we're just going to back out till we get all the way out. Okay? And then we can simply power down by pushing the button. And it's going to shut off. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this little tour of the Genisys Evo. What I'm expecting you guys to be able to duplicate in the shop is obviously these things that I've just told you about. So be able to turn it on, enter the VIN, know how to hook it up, how to get codes, how to navigate codes, how to erase codes. I expect you to be able to go to data stream, get the data, manipulate the data by locking it and unlocking it, and sorting it, also by sorting it alphabetically, and lastly by being able to put something on a graph and be able to navigate forward and backwards. So that's what I'm expecting you to be able to do in the shop. You can watch this video as many times as you need to. Hopefully it's helpful for you, and we look forward to you testing out on this good piece of equipment. See you then.